Away from World Press Freedom Day, just for a bit, we are going to be getting into relationships in our Kickstarter segment this morning. Where do you find the right one? Who is the right one is the question. For a number of you, you need to know who the right one is before maybe you pop the question of will you marry me, or before you ask, you actually go ahead to say yes, I will marry you as a woman. And we're having this conversation this morning with Bishop Isaiah Mbuga. He is from Christ Heart Ministries. He's a relationship coach, and we have also just learned one other thing. He's planning on starting up a dating online platform, Christian dating online platform. So this is why we ask and answer the question this morning of who is the one. Welcome to Morning at NTV, Bishop.
Thank you.
Bishop, can I just ask you this? So today in the scoop, we have this particular story, the era of rich, hip, trendy men of God. Are you in this category?
Am I there?
No, you're not. But do you consider yourself to be in this category?
What do you mean? I've been in the Christian ministry for 30 years. Mm-hmm. I'm not out to impress anybody, and I do my stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't need any recognition from anywhere. So if they are trendy people, let them be trendy. But how do you gauge trendiness? You can trend in the world, but are you trending with God?
Oh, yes.
And what matters most?
And what matters most is actually you're training with God. So I don't know the basis of that story. I don't even know who wrote it and why they wrote it.
Now, the main focus right here is, of course, pastors, men of God who, groom a certain way that is appealing to the majority who are the youth. So the haircut, some of them put on studs and stuff like that. What's your view? You've been, of course, in this particular space for 30 years, like you did mention rightfully. But what's your view on this? They always say that don't look at how, my outwardness, but look at the heart. But what's your view on this? Do you have any comments with regards to the same, of course, the new trend of pastors who, look hip and trendy in a certain way?
That's my answer.
Well, let's get right into it. When you talk about the one, when it comes to marriage, that one particular one, how do you know that this one is the one? Because a number of people will say, I saw her and I knew she was the one. Immediately I saw her.
The older I grow, or the older I get, the more I interact with people, I come to certain conclusions, and some of these conclusions begin to inform my opinion. It's possible for you to see the right one. Of course, what you're talking about now is love at first sight, right? It works for some people, and it doesn't work for others, because you can fall in love with something fake. Like the Bible says, the deep attracts the deep. So if you're fake, you'll always attract the fake. However much you try, if you're fake, you will attract the fake. You cannot be genuine and you attract fake. If you are genuine and you attract fake, then there is a problem with your spiritual upbringing. But for most people, if you are talking church, most people will know in their inner man that I'm actually taking a wrong road. But sometimes the benefits of the relationship, the guy has a car, he has a house, he's got a good job, he's washing you with money. So you can't run away. You can't run away because of the stuff you're getting. But deep down in your heart, you know that this is not the kind of thing I should be in. But because of need, you get stuck in there. Other men want to get women who they can control. So you look at a woman and say, this one I can control, this one I can manipulate. There are very, very few people in our era today who are actually out for genuine love.
What would we constitute as genuine love?
People who will love you the way you are, and accept you the way you are, and deal with you the way you are. Because all of us want to deal with people that are right, that are correct, that have their acts together. But the world is not like that. All of us have weaknesses. No, some of them may not be weaknesses. Our bodies may have flaws. you know.
Correct.
So if you're going to deal with a person and then you discover, like I'm going to use a bad example, that the lady has a very good personality, but she has one breast because she lost one to cancer or to an accident. But she puts there something to like balance her up. If you discover, will you still go on with that relationship? Most people will fall out. Why? Because the woman has one breast. Who's going to see that breast? How is it going to affect the marriage? It's not going to affect the marriage, but because of the interests you had when you're getting into it. So it's an issue of interest. And when you talk interest, you're talking selfishness. Because the moment it comes to relationship, you all want to pull to your side. And you want to get the best stuff for yourself, the best person for yourself, and then even if it's a lady. Right now, when you check in the news, you'll find those sections where women are looking for men. You will find a man is 24, he says he's looking for a woman between the age of 25 and 39. She should be rich and willing to take care of him. So you as a man, what are you bringing on the table?
It's true, Pastor. And you mentioned one thing that, you know what, messed up people attract messed up people. If you're not straight, then you automatically attract someone who's like you. But then if we have that particular, you know, kind of standard that has been put out pretty much, then why do we have high rates of, you know, divorce? People no longer stick to their marriages. Maybe, and you find most of the times it's people who have dated for quite a long time.
That's why I don't believe in that.
What should be the ideal
I tell people in church that you cannot know a man or a woman entirely all through the dating process. 90% of the activity is show. It's show business. The hair is show business. You want to impress this man that you know how to eat French food. You know, you want to impress this woman that you can go out. You know all the trendy places. It's show. The moment you come into the house and the marriage has started and everyone has left, then the things start coming off. That's where the problem is. It's a show. And when the show is over, you can't live with the person who is off the stage because you've been a player and they've been playing along.
So how long should people date?
Let's get to the act. Let's begin with the beginning.
All right.
Should you date to marry? The answer is no.
What should they do?
Marry your friend. Marry the person who knows you and the person who is your friend. That's what my mother told me. Because I went through all that looking for a wife, and I went on like approaching people, and everyone I approached turned me aside. But my mother, I went back to my mom and said, "Mommy, I failed to find a woman to marry." My mom told me, "Stop looking up. Stop looking at people you think you like. Look amongst your friends. There is someone who has been there for a long time." And indeed, my wife now had been my friend, but you know, the friend you run to when you're heartbroken and say, "Oh, you know, this has happened." And she'll give you a cup of tea and say, "I'll pray for you, things will be okay." Eventually, when I took my mom's advice, I started like scanning my own life. I discovered that my wife has been there. Now, I tell people, you did not fall from heaven. You have been on earth. You have relationships. There are people who know you. The best person who can marry you and understand you is one that has been with you all along. But you know what? Because you didn't have money before. Now you have money. So you think you want a person who knows only this side of you. So that's why we get into divorce, because you think, because I have all this money, I have what it takes to win that girl. But you know you're winning the girl. You're not winning her because you love her, but because of what you have. And she's also not accepting to date any man of any financial lower status, because she feels her beauty must attract a certain kind of lifestyle. So you get the money, and you get the man with the money, and the man with the money gets the woman with the looks. You get into the house, and the two stuff can't stay together. You fake it until you get tired, then you walk out. you'll find that most people will settle there after their second divorce. That's when they'll settle. Why? Because the games are over. Now they will begin looking at life realistically. Most of the stuff that I read about relationships in newspapers, that I hear on radio and on TV is crap. And then people are taking it seriously.
But Pastor, we've had stories, I'm sure there are cases whereby two people who have been friends, actually childhood friends, their parents even know each other, got married but still the marriage didn't work. So how would you say, or what would you say would have ideally maybe happened in that particular
But I'll tell you something. All hypothetical discussions like this one has two sides to it. When you're looking at the continent, you have the side for whom it has worked perfectly, and you have the side for whom it hasn't worked perfectly. Why? Because we are dealing with people who change.
Correct.
And when you're dealing with people who are changing, when you're dealing with a human being, I'm a pastor. I deal with people who change. There's a person who will come and tell you, I have changed. The next thing they'll do something that you do not expect a changed person to do. And what do? Throw them out. No, sit them down and show them this is what you're supposed to do, this is what you've done. Now this is what they call error, or this is what they call sin. Some will accept, some will say, I don't think it is a sin. I just like it the way it is. You get my point?
Right.
But sometimes when we are looking at these relationships, every relationship is unique. Every individual is unique. You may be, when we were growing up, we had boys who were experts at conning. You can be an expert at wooing, but you may be a failure at keeping a wife. Whoa. Because those are two different games. Completely different games. A wife and her position in a marriage is very different. That's why I tell men, don't marry a woman you despise. Marry a woman you fear. A friend who you don't want to find out, who you wouldn't want to know your mess. That's the right person, because every time they'll keep you on your toes. I tell women, don't marry a man you despise. Marry a man who you can listen to, because sometimes in marriage the man must take the lead and say, we are moving. We're not going to stay in this house. Sometimes it's the women who say, we're not going to stay in this house anymore. We're not paying any more rent. You come back, she's packed everything, and she says, leave the things, I've hired the lorry, we go. But the house you're going to doesn't have power. It says it doesn't matter, it's our house. I will work hard and make sure power comes. You get my point?
Right.
But when you look at all this slave queen business that we have today, you cannot go to a bar or to a party or to a bachelor party and pick a wife from there.
Oh, really?
You can't.
Why? Because a number of people lately
They
have put
go
it out.
there with the intention of hooking up with people. But for how long are you going to fake it? That's why they fail. That's why those marriages fail.
So where do you find a good spouse then?
I've told you, in your natural setting, you work with these people. You walk with them. They are your neighbors. You've been to school with them. They are friends with your sister. They are friends with your brother. They are all over around you. Don't do project marriage that I've seen a woman there, because project marriage doesn't work for everybody. You know, there are people who walk nicely, and some of them are walking exaggeratively. But when you get home, you realize that the hips that attracted you, she will put them off with the long socks, and then you discover, and then the bums you thought, my, this is it. You discover she will wash them and hang them up in. You marry. There are people. Why don't you people want to marry your friends?
But Bishop, if we now say perhaps we have gotten the friend, we're in the right environment, it could be work, it could be at home within maybe these family friends that we have around. You mentioned earlier the inner man speaking to you, and your inner man tells you this is the one. Someone will say, what does the inner man's voice sound like?
But okay, now that's a very interesting thing, because we are dealing with people who have stony hearts. As long as you have a stony heart, you will actually rebel against your inner man, because the inner man will tell you today, don't put on that mini skirt. And for you say, no, this is how I really feel, brings out my femininity. You understand?
Yes.
So he says today, you're not putting on that makeup. You're not putting on those
eyelashes.
You insist. You say no. I'm going. So as you grow older and as you interact with your inner man on a daily basis, you teach the inner man to be silenced. So eventually the inner man will say, if you have a stony heart, then that inner man in the stony heart will tell you that's the right thing. But that inner man in the stony heart is misleading you. Why? Because the right one has been resisted for a very long time.
And silenced.
Yeah, you silenced him, and now something must fill that void.
All right.
So you use your eyes, you use your mind, you use the stuff the man is throwing at you, or the things the woman is doing. You know, your house wasn't organized. You come back and she organizes your house, and you begin to think this is going to be the right marriage spouse. But organizing a house one weekend doesn't make someone marriage material.
You know, Bishop, relationships are, how will I put it? I think the most paramount aspect of life and societies, because if you're to talk of a next generation, of course it will stem from a relationship and the offspring. Then we'll see the following days or the following years. Of late, we've been seeing a very worrying trend where people you assumed were lovers, people you assumed were a couple or a married couple, turn against each other, murder each other. So how does it get to that point?
Murder each other.
Well,
one murder.
One murders and the other one, well, one murders and the other one commits suicide. I'll give you a case. We saw one here in the news in the neighboring country. I mean, it's been day in, day out. You can't, even on social media, you can't miss a case whereby maybe a wife murdered the husband and she committed suicide. Or maybe the police, arrested her and, stuff happened. How do you categorize that? And these are people who have been, for example, if it's a marriage case, who have been in marriage for, people say, once you're past 10 years of marriage, once you're past 20 years of marriage, really, that marriage, the chances of that marriage to go under are very slim. So how do you explain that when people who are lovers turn against each other?
Well, the first thing I'll say, hurting people hurt people. In our setting, in Africa and in Uganda specifically, we do not deal with people's inner feelings. We have suicidal people. We have people who, I'll say it in Uganda, they're in a marriage. All they need is one straw for them to say, I'm going to get a knife and dig it into your heart. Why? Because the person has been struggling with the suicidal thoughts, with depression, but they don't even know that what they are feeling is actually not supposed to be. So when you say it's increasing, do you know that also the rate of depression and mental instability is also increasing? So these things are related, and love is attached to emotions. Emotions are attached to the heart, but also to the head, to the head. So when you have a faulty mind, you can't have a good heart. And two, all these influences, when a woman reads that another woman ended her marriage by killing the man, the socializing role of media. They get an opportunity to say that I can also do it and get out of this trouble. Sometimes some of these women, I counsel people. There is a woman who came to me and told me, my husband locks me in the gate. He said, if I go to work, they will con me. So he is so insecure, he locks the woman in the gate, and he goes away at 6 and he comes home at 9. The woman, no visitor can come into the compound, And the day the man forgot the keys, the woman came and said, I don't know when I'll ever come again because it usually does not happen. I said, don't you go shopping? If we go shopping, we go together. Now that's already a madman.
Right.
And you knew this. If you see all these things are there. But women put up with a lot of stuff. By the way, you've been dating this guy, and in the process of dating, the guy is beating you. The guy is telling you to send away all your friends who are male. The guy is even not allowing you to see your cousins. He doesn't want you to go home. When you go, if you're not born again, you go to a bar. He doesn't want you to talk to anybody. He becomes so possessive. You see all these indicators, and you think, oh, when we get married, it will settle. You get married, he tells you leave work. You go back home, you put your phone down, he wants to check through your phone.
So that's an indicator.
Yeah, it's a control freak, but you know that control freak is already sick in the head.
Correct.
But you do not relate that to mental instability. Then the guy will wake up one day when the same thing on his head. He'll tell you, I'm divorcing you, but he's mad. All you need to do, check him into a mental institution, and when he comes out, you say, I'm sorry, but guess what? So when the man says, I'm divorcing you, then you think you're dealing with a sober person. It is not right. It is impossible. You know, it happens, but when you need to check on the sanity level of the person you're dealing with.
Bishop, you mentioned something when you talk about the sanity level. Someone with all the indicators that you have put out, it's not only just for the person who's dating to realize. Comes society, comes your friends to see and tell you there might be something wrong with this person.
And then you hate the people who are telling you that.
So now talking about bringing your accountability partners into a relationship.
I'll tell you, the moment you want to enter a marriage institution, it has become a public institution. You cannot have a private marriage. That's why they don't dissolve it in a bedroom. If you're dissolving a marriage, you can't start it in a bedroom. You can also not end it in a bedroom or in a hotel restaurant where you say we are done, or on a text message. It cannot happen. You have to go to court. You sit there, and the man will sit there, or the woman will sit there, and then you will. They'll go in the press. Now you are not an island, and that's the other mistake we keep making. You think that now that I've got the man I want, then you begin to shut out all your friends. But you will need support structures. No marriage can thrive. I have support structures. I've been married for 19 years. I have support structures. There are people, if we get an argument with my wife, or I'm seeing something from this view and she sees it from that view, we have somebody we've been working with for the last 20 years, actually before we got into the marriage. So if we have any issue, I'm telling my wife we're going to go this direction, and she thinks that direction is no good for us, then I tell her, or sometimes I don't even tell her. She'll just go to my mentor and say, well, is this happening at home? Then he will call me and ask me, why is this happening? And I will not go back home saying, why are you reporting? No, that's healthy.
But you see, Bishop, now that is it. People don't know how to identify such a person, such a mentor,
so
for example, for their marriage.
Did they grow up in a tree, or did they fall from heaven?
But the thing is, the people are there, but how do you identify someone who is, real, who really wants the good for your marriage, and someone who is not truthful? How do you get to sieve and come down to that one person who supports your marriage at 100% and wants good for your marriage?
That is our biggest problem, and I'll tell you, it even starts in the church. The fakeness starts in the church. Why? Because no one wants to fake a God, because we know the God is going to hell. Have you ever seen someone faking drunkenness? But even a person who spent the whole night in a bar on a Saturday night, when he comes to church, is faking spirituality.
So what's the solution? What's the solution? Someone watching us today who is...
First of all, you need to identify the right people.
How?
That's the hardest part. The right people. Because the right people are not going to advertise themselves. They'll not get an opportunity like me to come here and be on TV. But if you have a relationship problem, you can come. You can come to our church and we help you. But if I'm doing a relationship counseling, you come to people. Yeah? And you assure me you tell the truth. Because sometimes a woman will come and cry, and then my husband is so horrible, yeah. Until the man comes and says, that woman, She's not been sleeping home for 2 weeks. I say, huh?
But Pastor, someone who can't come to a church, Rita did mention that it's important to have that support system. But how do you know these are the people that I can disclose my issues to? How do you get to see that? Someone who can't come to your church and wants a quick solution, someone who's watching us today. How do you get to sieve? Because you can't share your issues with everyone.
And that's what I'm telling you. Because number one, sometimes we tell people who are married that you leave your marriage issues in your bedroom. When you come out in the public, you have to put out a good picture. That's a fallacy. And that's where all trouble begins. So you see two people sitting in the same car, smiling. Maybe one is reading a newspaper, is disinterested, or these days they are on their phone, you know. And you think, oh, this is a happy marriage and stuff and that, so these people can help me. Then you get there and you share your story and say, you'll be there. You mean it? There are people in this society who can help. Unfortunately, there are very few that I can also recommend. But I'll tell you, if you value that marriage, then you make the journey. You sit in a queue and you'll be helped. The thing we are trying to present is we are trying to present to people. You want to help people on their terms. You know, you want people to be helped on the screen. Some of them need rebuke. Some of them need a little slap to wake them up. I'm being honest with you. The relationship problem, the suicide problem, relationship problem, divorce. One time my wife was teaching in a certain school. Actually, it was Aga Khan. She was teaching in P1. And all the parents who were in her class, all had divorced. And she came home one day and said that, you know, the remaining 2 kids I had in the class, whose parents were still together, pew,
gone.
The other challenge is we are getting into the social culture of the Western world,
which is
which they've grown up in, and for us we've just landed on it through internet. For them, they have support structures. Even when you divorce, the divorce is gonna work. But you know, because you know you will get your equity out of the house, and then you'll be able to get a house somewhere. But in Uganda, you have one house, you have one car. You're going to fight. You're going to fight over the property. You're going to fight over who keeps the children. I am in those battles every day because men make girls pregnant, abandon them. They don't tell the truth even to their spouses that they've got a child. 8 years down the road, the child must go to school. And you know the guy, a pipira with paying tuition for.
Right. You know, Bishop, we have a question on social media, and thank you so much to our social media soldiers. We are seeing your views, keep them coming. The hashtag is Morning at 10 TV. Now, we have a question here. Bishop, how do I handle matters to do with infidelity in marriage?
I'll tell you. This is a very hard thing, but I'll tell you. Infidelity in a marriage is a slow death in the offing. What do I mean? If your spouse is cheating on you, chances are high when they come home they'll bring you disease. This is not a matter you should take, you know, with your legs crossed, lying down, you know, doing stuff on social media. If you discover your spouse, and by the way, spouses who are in infidelity, they can never sit down to talk about it.
Okay.
They can't. The moment you want to bring it out, they'll fight. They'll beat you up to silence you. But the moment you see it, if you're a woman, I'll tell you to do something which is very bad.
Which is?
You go and get condoms and bring them at home and tell your husband, because I've discovered you're doing this, from today, I'll not sleep with you unless you're wearing protection. Because I cannot die. It will shame that man. He will kneel down.
It will?
Yeah. It will, because you've done something it doesn't expect.
I think just talk to people as well, because the instances where I've told you we've been seeing in the news whereby, you know, spouses, one murders the other and then this one commits suicide, is because boom, they realize that my spouse is unfaithful, and so they can't handle that. So what would you tell someone watching us today who has been doubting their spouse, and then maybe they get into that point where they now have evidence? How should someone compose themselves to avoid such instances or incidences where they have to take
I'm
each
going to
other's
say a
lives?
bad thing. Someone has a bad stomach and you want them to compose themselves. They have a bad stomach, gas wants to escape, and you're telling them, sit nicely there and put on a smile. Meanwhile, the stomach is on fire. When the heart is on fire, people will do anything. This is not for a nice day, let me poison the guy and he dies in his sleep. No. The moment the person gets proof, they want to go and attack them at the office. You understand?
Right.
And the Bible is very clear when it comes to a relationship, a marriage relationship, when a man catches another man with his wife. The Bible says nothing will appease the man. Nothing will appease the man. Now, when it comes to women, I do not believe that our women in Africa are trained to handle this. They are not. We are supposed to help them.
So what should you do?
Number one.
Get the news.
Number one, the moment you start expecting or suspecting, you can expect because of the way you got the man. That is called expecting. You can expect if you got the man through.
Yes.
You also poached.
Yes.
You poached.
You were hunting elsewhere.
You reap
What
you sow. So if you poached, they'll poach you. They'll poach you. Number two, if you went against all kinds of advices, people told you, that man is so genuine, or that woman is they told you all those things, and you said, me it will be different. That's a deception. If there is another woman who has already failed in that marriage, don't just think you walk in and make it work.
Right.
If there has been no change of heart. That's the second thing. So what do you do? Number one, you must always have accountability partners around you. You must have someone you can run to and say, I'm dying. And all these people are around us. The Bible says older women should teach younger women how to love their wives. Don't go to your age mate, because your age mate does not know what it means to deal with a man that is cheating. But if a man is cheating, it may not mean that he's cheating with one person. It may be his habit. And the first thing you have to do is to put a barrier between you and him and say, my dear friend, if this is how you're going to cheat, let's treat this marriage also as part of the cheating.
Right.
You want to sleep with me?
So try as much as possible to have that
Yes,
partner
but
that you can run to.
Yes, in order for you to pour out the emotions. But if you catch somebody like that and you have the evidence, place it there, but also do it in an open environment so that the man cannot kill you for having evidence.
All right.
To bury it.
Okay.
So as the relationship conversation continues to grow, I think we might have to extend this to another Friday due to time. Bishop, thank you so much for coming.
Are you sure the time is over?
Yes, it is. It feels like it was just a minute of this. But for those on social media, I seem to be agreeing. Someone did say, Chitufu nyo Bishop. But thank you so much, Bishop Isaiah Mbuga, for joining us this morning. He is from Christ Hearts Ministries, and he is a relationship coach. One thing is listen to your inner man. In each and everything, listen to your inner man. Get people with wise counsel that are older than you. Your
Older women.
Older women, please, older women.
And
now
for
you
the
have
men?
had it for yourself.
And
Older men.
For the men, older men. There.
That has been our Kickstarter segment for this morning. We'll be taking a short break, getting into reality on the ground, and also take note.
Shape, height, Weight, color. These are the things the fashion